In a big development, India has announced its first significant discovery of reserves of lithium, a rare mineral crucial for manufacturing of electric vehicles.
Lithium-ion covers a very broad range of technologies.
In order to power all of these EVs, we will need lithium-ion batteries, lots of them.
Some call it white gold. It's a critical material used in batteries, and of course demand is skyrocketing as energy companies and car makers move away from fossil fuels.
Global push to EVs boosting the price of lithium to a record high in China.
India has literally hit the jackpot.
The Geological Survey of India has found 5.9 million tons of lithium reserves in Jammu and Kashmir's Riyasi district.
With this discovery, India can end its reliance on China. Lithium-ion battery technology is said to be the best right now, which is why every country is trying to set up solid lithium supply chains.
This is going to be a game changer for India.
Hello friends. On 9th February, India's Ministry of Mines made an announcement that almost 6 million tons of lithium was found in Jammu and Kashmir. And today Iran announced that they have discovered 8.5 million tons of a lithium reserve in the west of the country, a figure that represents nearly 10% of what global reserves were estimated to be in 2022. In today's world, everything from the batteries in your smartphone to the electric vehicles is using lithium-ion batteries, which is driving up the demand for lithium. It has become a highly valuable natural resource, and hence it is being considered as the white gold. According to a United States Geological Survey report published in 2022, a total of 89 million tons of lithium have been identified worldwide. The country with the highest reserves is Chile at number 1, with 9.2 million ton reserves, followed by Australia, second, at 5.7 million tons. Does this mean that Iran and then followed by India have the second and third largest reserves of lithium in the world? Does this mean that these two nations have hit a lottery? And similar to how the Gulf countries in the 20th century became rich due to oil reserves, can India and Iran become rich due to the lithium reserves? In this video, let's try to answer all such questions. But before that, let's clear up one thing, that as long as scientists do not find another superior battery building material, lithium is going to be an extremely valuable metal. All smartphones, irrespective of the brand, have either a lithium-ion battery or lithium polymer battery. Additionally, any electric vehicle that is being manufactured today will have a lithium battery. This is because in comparison to the other types of batteries, such as lead-acid batteries, the lifespan of lithium batteries is almost 10 times longer. They weigh about 50% to 60% lighter and have higher efficiency. So much so that today, for storing renewable energy, even power grids are using lithium batteries. The price of lithium has surged in recent years, largely spurred by ambitious emissions goals by countries in Europe and North America. A McKinsey study from last year reported a 550% annual increase in the price of the metal. The total value of global lithium market in 2021 was $100 billion and is projected that by 2028, its value would cross $1.5 trillion. As people move away from petrol and diesel vehicles towards electric vehicles, as solar and wind energy are used more, replacing coal power plants, we will see a growth in lithium demand. If the top players in the lithium industry are compared, more than half of the global lithium reserves are in 3 South American countries, Argentina, Bolivia and Chile, and this region at the intersection of these countries is also known as the South American Lithium Triangle. But surprisingly, the market of lithium supply is not dominated by any of these countries. On the other hand, China is the number 1 player of producing lithium-ion batteries. Of all the lithium batteries produced worldwide, more than 75% of it are produced in China. According to a recent study by an international energy agency, China controls 58% of the lithium processing globally. In the second spot is Chile at 29% and Argentina at the third with 10%. It is interesting to note that China has not discovered many lithium reserves, but has focused so much to develop the lithium processing industry and has a very tight control over these lithium mines. China's Tianqi Lithium is the second largest shareholder in SQM, which is a very established Chilean mining company. China's Ganfeng Lithium Company controls 51% of an Argentinian lithium project that has been developing with Lithium Americas Corporation. On top of that, Chinese companies have also invested in Bolivian lithium reserves, and China also holds a 51% stake in the world's biggest hard rock lithium mine at Greenbushes in Western Australia. So clearly China, although does not have lithium reserves, it controls those entities that control the reserves in the South American Lithium Triangle and even Australia. This is one of the major reasons why India and Iran are so much dependent on China for lithium batteries, that 70% of their supply comes from China. So now the question is, if countries have found such huge lithium reserves, does it mean that they are no longer dependent on China? And are they going to go on to become the electric superpower of the world? Well, not really, because number one, the lithium reserves discovered in India and Iran have been categorized as inferred resources. These are resources whose quantity and quality can only be estimated. The reason it is important to understand this logic is because Bolivia has the largest lithium reserves in the category of inferred resources at 21 million tons, and yet is not in the top 5 producers of lithium. It's also early to say whether or not it will be economically possible to mine it given the costs and the environmental impact. The Ecological Survey of India has put this discovery into the G3 category of initial assessment, and studies need to be done to move this up to the G1 or G2 categories. Once they reach those categories, they can be considered mineable reserves, and only after that, we would be able to know the exact tonnage of lithium present, how much of it could be extracted, and its quality, which can take at least 5 to 7 years to be commercially viable. The second issue is a high environmental cost of lithium mining. Similar to mining for other resources, lithium mining produces water, soil, and air pollution too. The process of extracting lithium from its ore is water intensive, and a lot of water is wasted for this. According to an estimate, to produce 1 ton of lithium, 2.2 million liters of water is required. The same amount of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Second, lithium is often extracted from hard rocks and underground brine reservoirs. Third, what about the air and soil pollution produced by mining? It is true that lithium is being used to manufacture electric vehicles and electric batteries, that is reducing the overall carbon emissions. But here, we cannot ignore the carbon emissions from mining. In countries like Argentina and Bolivia, people have been protesting the adverse environmental impact. But hypothetically, if we believe that the discovered reserves become proven reserves, and it'll be economically profitable to mine them, and this won't have a high adverse environmental impact, and that everything is accounted for, how will this impact the Indian and Iranian economy and geopolitics? This is the most interesting part. Because if we work with these assumptions, the situation would be very similar to that in the Gulf countries that hit the jackpot when they found oil reserves. It is interesting to see that historically, reactions of various industries had its impact when wholesome natural resources were found in any country. There are several positive examples of this. Apart from the Gulf countries, oil was discovered in Norway, Australia, countries like Botswana and Rwanda, which developed a lot. But at the same time, there are opposite examples too. Countries for whom their natural resources have become a curse, where the country had to face misfortune because of that, such as Congo, Bolivia, and Netherlands. The case of the Netherlands is so famous that a phenomenon called the Dutch disease is named after it, which is also known as the resource curse. A disease that is seen in countries that have an abundance of natural resources. It might seem like that country should become rich due to the natural resources, but it doesn't happen. In 1959, large gas reserves were discovered in the Netherlands, and immediately thereafter they began exporting natural gas. This helped the economy a lot, but about 10 years later, during the period 1970 to 1977, the unemployment rate increased up to 5.1%, which was earlier around 1%. The private sector investment decreased, and in 1977, The Economist magazine used the phrase the Dutch disease to explain the case of the Netherlands. Which means a country stumbling upon an abundance of natural resources, and if the other sectors of the country aren't developed, they wouldn't be able to compete with the sector of the natural resource, and eventually will face a depression. This was evident in the Netherlands and in many other countries as well. On the other hand, if we see the example of the Gulf countries, they avoided the Dutch disease easily. Because there were no other sectors. Literally, the Gulf countries would have no economies, had oil reserves not been discovered. The value of their currency was able to appreciate freely without any impact on any other sectors, because these countries weren't exporting anything else. Developed countries like Australia and Norway had a high quantity of resources found there, but avoided the Dutch disease by diversifying masterfully among other sectors. Specifically speaking of Norway, this country was fortunate because their government spent on the education of their citizens. They spent on creating good infrastructure, provided a high quality of life to the citizens, They did these before oil was discovered there. The first oil field in Norway was discovered in 1969. By then, there was a strong democratic government in Norway. Their public institutions were very strong and the economy was already diversified. Countries like Venezuela and Iran weren't so fortunate. In 1908, oil was found in Iran, and in 1922, oil was found in Venezuela. In both these countries, the other sectors weren't as developed. Citizens weren't very educated, and the oil attracted all the funds and labor. The entire economy tried to survive on only one resource. In both countries, the rest of the economy suffered heavy losses. The Gulf countries are paying a lot of attention to this lesson. Countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, that were once dependent on oil only, today, they are trying to diversify their economies. Today, Dubai has become a tourism hub, and 95% of its GDP is not oil-based. Only 30% of the GDP of the UAE depends on oil and gas. If you consider the developing countries, Botswana in Africa is one of the positive examples of this, which has successfully avoided the Dutch disease. But the negative examples would be countries like Congo and Zimbabwe, where due to corruption and mismanagement, the natural resources have proved to be a curse. In the manufacturing of lithium-ion batteries, cobalt is another important metal that is used. And do you know that Congo produces 74% of the global cobalt supply? With such a large quantity of a valuable resource in one country, Congo could have become extremely rich if it wanted to be. But today, you'll find Congo at the bottom of nearly all lists. By 2015, numerous mines in Congo were controlled by warlords. They ran a mining mafia. Even today, mining is carried out by children. There's rampant child labor all across the country. The mining destroyed the environment of the country, and the economy did not benefit at all. Overall, the lesson is very clear. If any country finds a treasure trove of natural resources, they should not be fully dependent on that treasure. They need to use the resource to help the citizens and to diversify the economy of the country. The governments should be mindful of things like corruption and mismanagement. Because if there's corruption with the natural resources, it will prove detrimental to the country. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.